Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the MMA on the Island podcast for episode number 14 here on the pod. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, our shooting schedule, it's been a little inconsistent, but I think we're going to be getting back on track here. Had some changes in terms of the school and life schedule, so we should have us a nice routine weekly podcast for you guys back. So I'm happy to be back as always. It feels every time that we take a week off it feels like way too long.
It does feel like way too long.
And especially in these last 2 weeks where the UFC decided, and I'm talking to my little brother about this last night. I'm like, why, when it was hit like late August, I was kind of thinking in my head, I'm like, these October, November, December cards are kind of empty. You know what I mean? Like, and I understand contract negotiations a long process and, different guys, there's a lot to it, of course. It's easier said than done than just, how we do it, just matchmaking in our heads. But like at the same time, it was starting to get a little concerned for the UFC because you had a card in 296 that was
empty.
There
was no fight.
Nope, nothing. And then 295 was pretty much just John Jones and Stipe.
I think the co-main up until they announced was Andrade and Dern.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
So, but with that, the UFC decided, you know what, these 2 weeks, we're just going to lay everything out for the rest of the year. And as fight fans, I'm freaking ecstatic.
So am I.
And a little disappointed, but we'll get into that. But first, let's go back 2 weeks now. Let's jog your memories a little bit. Let's talk the UFC fight night that saw a championship bout as the main event, something you don't see very often in the UFC and really any organization.
I think the last time was during COVID. I think it was Figueiredo and Benavidez or something like that.
Yes. I actually do vividly remember that card. Yes, and that was a quick finish for Figueiredo. I remember that was a fight that got coming in. They were kind of hyping Benavidez up like he had more left in the tank than I think he actually did because Figgy made quick work of him. But that fight, Grasso Shevchenko delivered, I'd say, a lot more than that one in terms of entertainment value. And we'll get into that. But first, I want to talk the co-main, JDM versus Holland. It was a fight that when people saw the odds were thinking, wow, Holland being the slight underdog, questionable, but JDM proved Vegas right and got the job done.
He did. You look at the stats for that fight, they both had a significant amount of significant strikes. But overall, I thought that fight was kind of boring. It was so hard to tell who won each round. I think the most decisive round was the third round for JDM. I think he started to not necessarily, dominate, but it was noticeable that he was putting in more volume, landing the cleaner strikes. It just looked like Holland, and I know that's that's characteristic of him to just talk to his opponent and stuff like that, but it didn't seem like there was a sense of urgency in that fight to get the job done. He didn't seem as aggressive as he was when he fought Ponzinibbio, and then who did he fight? Oh, then Michael Chiesa. He dominated Michael Chiesa or Chiesa, whatever. So I thought this wasn't really like Holland. I think if he was his normal self, I think he would have beat JDM because look at his last fight with, I'm gonna say Belize something Hafiz. I don't know. I'm saying his name wrong. Forgive me, guys. But that fight showed that JDM isn't as indestructible as people were making him out to be. And is so far in his UFC tenure, this guy nobody's heard of, arguably definitely won one round, but some people thought he won the fight. So I thought going into this fight, Holland was, I think he was gonna truly expose JDM. Not to say JDM's a bad fighter at all. I think he's great. His kickboxing's up, is phenomenal. But I was disappointed. I was rooting for Holland, but nonetheless, JDM, he got the job done. So there's nothing else to say on that.
Yes, he did. And really, it was surprising that, and I know some people were calling for Holland maybe to wrestle a little bit, which I think I would have liked to see. But he's somebody that, unless the opportunity kind of presented itself like it did in that Michael Chiesa fight, he's somebody that likes to stay on the feet, likes to give the crowd an entertaining fight. And that fight wasn't the most entertaining, but I think it was pretty clear that JDM landed the better strikes, and Holland, I'm pretty sure he threw like a ridiculous amount of strikes and was not landing many.
No, he was not.
Especially for somebody who had like a 6-inch reach advantage or something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's a testament to JDM's kickboxing skills and his defense in particular. To get a guy like Kevin Holland to miss that much.
Yeah, 127 for 356.
That is
It's 35.7% to
gross.
105 to 190 for
Gross.
55%.
That looks like me trying to spar, but well, nonetheless, we'll keep going and let's get into the main event of that evening at T-Mobile Arena. And before we get into that, I want to like this environment that was at T-Mobile Arena, like it had the pay-per-view vibe. I know John Anik said it on the broadcast, but like I really love the atmosphere, and I just love when they do fight nights not in the Apex.
Dude, it makes it so much better.
It gives it such a nice environment, and and it makes you really like like entrenched, I guess, in the fight. Because I feel like when they're just in the octagon, you hear everything. It's hard, to as a fan kind of to really engross yourself there. But when you hear the crowd roaring, and the fighters coming out to their song, getting hyped and excited, and slap people's hands, or the case may be. That's what I think of when I think of MMA, when I think of the UFC. So good on the UFC for doing these ladies right and having booking T-Mobile Arena and making it have that pay-per-view feel, because it really did. And then on to the fight. This was a fight that, man, there was a point where it looked like Shevchenko was done, and then there was a point where Shevchenko looked good. So it was all over.
I was on the edge of my seat watching this fight.
Yeah, it was perfect time for me, because I was watching the JDM Kevin Holland fight as I'm driving home, and then I get home and that fight starts, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is just a beautiful 25 minutes of mixed martial arts. But Grasso ends up keeping the belt via draw, and we'll get into whether we think how we feel about that draw decision later. But in terms of the fight itself, man, I mean, these are two women that are just really, really equal.
It was a great, yes. And this builds up Alexa's resume so much, right? Because to have two fights with, arguably the second best female fighter of all time, obviously behind Nunes. And Shevchenko arguably won a fight against Nunes too, that second fight. But, for Grasso to have two fights with Shevchenko, beating the first, obviously submitted her the first time, and a lot of people thought she won the second time. And Dana already announced that there will be a trilogy. I'm assuming sometime probably the first quarter of next year. Maybe closer to the middle, because I don't know if one of them has to get surgery or not. I thought I heard something like that. I could be wrong. But nonetheless, the fight's happening next year, which means, I know Joe and I discussed this last week, that leaves a potential matchup between Blanchfield and Fiore to finally have the determined next contender, because they're both going to be on standby now that there's a trilogy happening, right? So, and I'm going to go back to what you said real quick about the fight night and, how it had that pay-per-view-esque vibe. Dana said that this fight was the most watched fight night of all time, I think by like 3 times the amount. And he said until he's done with the UFC, he's going to have a UFC fight night in Mexico. And I think that's a great marketing idea. It attracts such a big crowd. The fans were electric in Mexico. I'm not Mexico, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, guys. In T-Mobile Arena. I don't know why I said Mexico. Mexican Independence Day just slipped. But it was a great card, honestly, from top to bottom. We'll mention real quick, Raul Rosas. He, after coming off of that disappointing performance against Christian Rodriguez, I think that was back at 285. A lot of people were like, oh, this kid is it was premature for the UFC to bring up this 18-year-old kid. I mean, the youngest, I think Mokaev was maybe the youngest before him at 20 or 21.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. There would be somebody else, but nobody was 18 years old. I mean, this kid was in high school fighting in the UFC, and he dominated Terrence Mitchell. He showed that he belongs, and just three fights in the UFC already. I think he just turned 19. That's amazing. But that's all I'll talk about that, because like Joe mentioned, there's so much to talk about. But as far as the fight, I'll give my 2 cents real quick, then I'll let him carry away. Obviously, for those who know me, I'm a big Alexa Grasso fan personally. So I'm gonna be unbiased as possible.
Are we gonna break the news on this pod? I think we should break.
Break the news.
Breaking news on the MMA on the Island pod. Aiden, I'm gonna throw up the graphic right now, but take it away. What happened? What happened?
So, right, Alexa put something on Instagram. I was like, let me support real quick. I said that she won 2-0. I'm not gonna say the entire caption for reasons, but I don't want people to think of me as certain match. I was like, you know what, 2-0 against Putin being Shevchenko.
I mean, they're gonna see the captions.
They're gonna see the caption regardless. I don't know what I'm thinking. But and then she liked my story too, and actually slid up in her DMs. I'm still waiting for that response. It might take a few days.
What was the slide? What was?
Oh gosh, it was something. It was something really corny, dude. It was bad. I actually have no riz whatsoever. So sliding into the female champs DMs, I think it was actually easier than normal because I'm like, you know what? She probably won't see it, but she's gonna see it. I think. I actually don't think I don't think the message sent. I think it's still sending. Maybe that's why she hasn't seen it after 5 or 6 days.
Well, listen, I'm gonna get a hold of a screenshot of that so I can put that up on the pod as well. I'd love to see what Aiden had to say.
Even though I'll send it to Joe and then
he maybe doesn't want to say it, a little shy, but let's just take a look at this unspoken riz right here. All right, continue. You can go back to talking about the fight now. But I had to mention that because when he sent me that as a text, I was
dude, he was hyped, bro. I couldn't believe that she liked it. It was awesome. It
was joke.
But getting back to the fight, right? And there's no way anybody could say this was a robbery whatsoever. The only bad part, obviously, was that 10-8 round by Mike Bell, and not one. No, there's no possibility whatsoever that fight was a 10-8 because for the first half of the fight, I guess Shevchenko. It was an even fight. Shevchenko, I guess, was doing a little better on the feet, but or maybe she just seemed more aggressive. And then obviously Alexa took her down at a submission attempt. So there's no dispute that, in my opinion, that Alexa won the round. But to say it's a 10-8 is flat out dominance, and that's just not what took place in that 5th round. But you looked at, and a lot of Joe and I have mentioned this this Instagram page and this voting I guess algorithm. I don't know what you would call it, but Verdict MMA. Yeah. They had that. I'm sorry. What was the one that was like? It was at the 3rd round that people were really. No, if it was the 3rd. No, 2nd. 4th round. It was the 4th round actually. I'm sorry.
I think you're right.
You look at Verdict. It was. I've never seen it before. It was 9.51 for Shevchenko to 9.51 for Alexa. I don't know how that makes because that's over. That would be over like a 10, but
the math would not math. The math does not math.
It's not mathing whatsoever. But nonetheless, that 4th round was dead evenly split. So there's no way that you could call that fight out. Personally, unbiased, I think Alexa won that fight up until that 5th round where it looked like she was starting to slow down a little bit. I thought Alexa was dominating on the feet, and in both fights, you see Shevchenko, her wrestling is better than Alexa's. I'll give her that, but she wouldn't really do. She had that submission attempt that had me screaming at my TV. I was actually getting nervous. I thought she was going to finish that rear naked choke. I think that was the 3rd round. I was not a happy person at midnight, but on the feet, dude, Alexa was piecing her up. She actually knocked her down in the 2nd round. Granted, Valentina got up to her feet relatively quickly, but I think Alexa, the 3rd time they fight, I think she's going to finish her again. I think Alexa is going to be the flyweight champ for a while. After putting up 2 fights against arguably the 2nd greatest women's fighter of all time, there's not many women in the world that can do that. So I'm all for Alexa. I think she's going to have a great tenure and championship run.
Yeah, and I disagree in terms of the final decision. I mean, obviously the draw was just ridiculous. You're talking about a 10-8 round where Shevchenko was doing well for the first half, if not, I think more. I think it was those last 2 minutes where Grasso really had her in trouble and had her back, and was in mount just dominating. But it was there's probably one of the most ridiculous scorecards I've ever seen in terms of the 10-8. But I gave it to Shevchenko. I thought 1, 3, and 4. Went her way. I mean, it was a very close fight. I'm looking forward to seeing it a 3rd time, but I think my biggest takeaway from it is, man, I think I don't want to take anything away from Alexa Grasso because she's a fantastically talented female fighter, and I think that I would lean her in a rematch as well, simply because of the fact that I think she's finally hit the point where she's starting to decline.
She's like 35,
and
30.
I mean, and we've seen the Bullet, look absolutely dominant. Over her title reign. But I think we're at this point now where Shevchenko just doesn't have the same juice that she did. And I think that Shevchenko doesn't really have, I feel like if you're looking at Shevchenko maybe 5 years ago, I feel like this fighting against Alexa Grasso, I think she's able to hold her own on the feet and is really able to dominate, I think. But Shevchenko now, man, I feel like Grasso is getting the better of her on the feet, and the kickboxing isn't really where it was, and she really had to rely on that wrestling. So if I'm Valentina, I don't know how much tread I have left in my tires. She's obviously a beast. She wants to keep fighting forever. Love that about her. But at the end of the day, I think my biggest takeaway is that I think Shevchenko is on the decline, man. It's sad to see because she is, like Aiden said, number 2 all time in terms of women's MMA. But let's keep going here, and we'll go now to last week's fight card, and we'll start with the co-main event there. Bryce Mitchell, I can't speak. Versus Daniel Ige. Mitchell getting a dominant unanimous decision, using his wrestling to get back into the win column.
Yes, and that was a good. It was. I don't know how to. I don't even know how to describe that fight, to be honest. It was. You look at
It was something.
the output. It was. I don't know, man. Bryce Mitchell, right? He is a phenomenal wrestler, and even Ige displayed great takedown defense early on in that fight. But that third round was just so tough to watch because, in my opinion, unbiased, because I've never really watched both of those guys, honestly. Bryce Mitchell, he just hugged Ige the entire third round for 5 minutes, basically 4 minutes and 45 seconds. I think Ige reversed him or somehow got on top the last 15 seconds. But other than that, man, like Ige, he blew up Bryce Mitchell's right eye or left eye, one of the two. And Ige just looked like he was a much better striker on the feet. It definitely looked like Mitchell needed to, he was knocking some rust off. I mean, he was almost out of the octagon for an entire year, right? After getting dominated by Topuria. And yeah, this was rough because I was rooting for Ige. I was like, you know what, he could start a little winning streak. He could make his way into the top of the featherweight division, and then Bryce Mitchell say, "Oh, I'm going to be the first. I could be the first guy to knock out." Please, you're not knocking anybody out unless it's to sleep, because that was such a boring performance by Bryce Mitchell. But he did look. His wrestling was great, man. He just needs to work on the feet. But I think that statement of him being the cash cow was going to have to be postponed because I don't know what world he is a landmine for the UFC is sitting on a gold mine with a performance like that. But yeah, he got the job done. Personally, I had it 2-1 for. Honestly, I thought it could have been 2-1 Ige because I just thought he was doing way more on the feet. And then when Mitchell would hold him down for 2 minutes at the end of the first 2 rounds, he wouldn't do crap. He would just hold him there. That's not really dominating to me, right? But again, I'm not a judge, so my opinion's, I guess, invalid. But I could have had a 2-1 or 1-2, like either or.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was very close. I mean, obviously Bryce Mitchell's style has always been wrestling, but it was really a nothing burger of a fight. You're talking about 23 significant strikes for the winner and an 18 significant strikes for Ige, and then you're talking about 69 total strikes landed rather. But between both guys, that's a fight where there's not a lot of damage getting done, and Aiden just had a nice yawn there, and that's exactly how I felt.
That wasn't even planned. It just
watching
happened.
this
I think
fight.
you're
No, I
discussing the
know
fight.
it was. You're discussing the fight, and you're just reminiscing on what happened on Saturday night when you watched the fight. But I'm still a Bryce Mitchell guy. I like him. I think that he still has potential in the organization. Is he a little bit too? Yeah, he's
29, 28. It's not old.
Yeah, no, not old at all. But I think he's somebody that still has potential in the organization. But yeah, he did get a little too ahead of himself talking about how he's this guy. Where I think in reality he's maybe needs to tone it down a little bit, humble yourself, kid, because you got dominated against Topuria, and I know that Topuria was obviously came in with a little bit of an advantage because I think Mitchell was I think he was sick. I think it was. He was saying
last
press
year
conference. Yeah, in his fight against Topuria.
I don't know if he had the flu.
He wasn't healthy, and
no,
yeah. So, but either way, I think that he still needs to. If he knocked him out, I would have warranted all of the talk. But what the performance that we got Saturday night was not one where you could really make a case for a drastic boost in the rankings in terms of a next fight. But now for the main event, of fight that I was really looking forward to, two guys in a lightweight division that's kind of getting old, two fresh young faces. They're looking to crack the top 5 and get into kind of that top tier status and start competing for belts in Rafael Fiziev and Matus Gamrot. And what a tragic way that fight ended. It was so unfortunate. Gamrot celebrating after pissed me off personally.
Bro,
because
needs to stop, bro.
Let's be honest, man. Like that was a fight where I thought that it was a clear round 1 for Fiziev, and then round 2, obviously the kick happens. He tears his ACL, and
wait, he tore his ACL?
It's the ACL. That's what it came out to be.
Of
but
course it was.
it's tough.
And then Matus, was celebrating over that. And then I personally thought he lost that fight against Jalen Turner in March. All he did was wrestle. And there's nothing wrong with wrestling if it is. If it's not broke, then there's no reason to fix it, right? But Turner, who, just fought Hooker not too long ago, and he was looking great in the beginning and then looked like shit at the end. But with that being said, I'm sorry, I don't even know what I was saying for a second. Jalen Turner, in my opinion, won that fight. He knocked him down in it, and I had it 2-1. But look at Matus Gamrot celebrating after that. It's just not. It's just not what you want to see, and it repels people from watching you, right? Because obviously that's not the outcome he wanted to happen, that he wanted, for that fight. But I don't know what I'm saying, Joe. You gotta help me out here, man.
No, you're
freezing
good.
up right now.
It was a frustrating, way to end the main event, and obviously it's not something that is new to the organization. We've seen it happen. I forget the last fight, the last main event that ended in an injury. I forget off the top of my head. I think it was a big boy. I forgot. Either way,
Weidman, right? No, that was
no, that wasn't the main event. But
Aspinall and Blades.
yes, Aspinall. That's something, because again, I said big boy. I knew it was Tommy Aspinall. Yeah, when he blew out his knee, that's just something where it's like, man, there's just nothing you can do, because again, it's a tough sport. With these guys, and anything can happen. And that time, just the kick got blocked the wrong way, got checked the wrong way, and that's it. Your night's over, your ACL's done. So I mean, it's a frustrating thing. And then when you're looking to the future of both guys now, I mean, Fiziev obviously going to have to take some time off, and he's a guy that I was really excited to get back in there and get to see him active after his loss to Gaethje. I thought that he was somebody that, although Gaethje looked, levels above him in that fight, I thought he was still very much a contender, and somebody that, brings some excitement into the lightweight division.
Even in that first round, his striking was so crisp, so fast.
Man,
like, he's such an explosive striker, dude. It's honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a striker that fast. I haven't seen a striker that fast in a while. Maybe Prime McGregor, but I'm sure there's somebody else I just can't think off the top of my head. But for that division alone, I think he's the fastest striker in that division.
Absolutely.
Might not be the most accurate right now, but that'll come with time. The guy's 30 years old, and a lot of the guys ranked above him. Poirier is 34, Gaethje is 34, Islam's young, he's still like 31. Oliveira's, I think, 34. Like, these guys are getting up there in age, and when they start to, hit the end of the tunnel, right? That opens up opportunities for guys like Fiziev. I don't even want to say Gamrot, because I just
not a Gamrot.
I just can't stand him, bro. Like,
not a Gamrot.
He's such a boring style. He has such a boring style. That's why I was freezing up before, because I didn't even know how to put it into words. But I think I could finally, say it.
Yeah.
He has such a boring style, and I'm not to say he's getting lucky, but he wasn't really gifted a split decision. But that, obviously, you're not gifted a win, a doctor's, an injury stoppage. But now he'll probably end up fighting a top 5 guy. I don't think he'll fight, even if Oliveira loses this fight to Islam, I don't think he'll go down and fight Matus. I thought Poirier would make the most sense personally, because obviously Poirier isn't fighting for a belt for a while. I think a win over Gamrot wouldn't give him a shot at the belt, right? But that would help probably get a top 5 fight, which I guess makes sense. Dariush is rumored to fight Arman, and Arman, I think, was due for a top 5 fight. He's
Absolutely.
kind of been getting the shitty end of the stick, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So, you have that booked. Chandler is, God knows when Chandler and McGregor are fighting. I don't even know. The dates have changed every day. Huh?
2026.
Yeah, 2026. But when they're both 40 years old, nobody's going to watch that fight.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, the pay-per-view would still freaking go.
Oh my God, it would sell numbers. I mean, look at Jones. I mean, it's a little different, but they're both up there in age.
Yeah. And, that's obviously a fight that has a lot of hype as well. So, I mean, I agree. I like the Poirier matchup, and then Fiziev, I can't really give him a matchup right now, because, you just want to wait.
He'll have to fight down, obviously.
Yeah, he's going to have to fight down, which, I mean, sucks, because, if this in a hypothetical world where that kick just lands or it just gets blocked in a way that doesn't completely tear, his ACL, we could be talking about a win for him, and then him get cracking into the top 5, because personally, I would love to see him versus Poirier when compared to talking about Gamrot versus Poirier, because I like Gamrot. I think he's, I respect everybody who steps to the octagon, and I think he's, earned his keep, although, his style isn't the most entertaining for the fight fan. But Fiziev, man, I mean, his striking is just so dynamic, and put him with a guy like Poirier, who just has such solid boxing and is so accurate. It's like chef's kiss. But maybe we'll get that fight one day. But that'll do it for our fight recaps. Now let's go into the headlines, and most notably, what we're gonna be talking about mostly here, the matchups, man. Dana White put it on a silver platter and said, "Fight fans eat," and we're gonna dig in. So let's start with UFC 296, or no, so it was 295 rather. Got its co-main event of the evening, in Yuri Prochazka making his return from his injury against Dallas Pereira for that light heavyweight belt that has been vacated. So it is that fight, man. I'm like so excited.
I'm so excited as well. And obviously, the winner of that fight is going to fight Jamal Hill.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm sure Jamal Hill will hopefully, I don't know when he's been rumored to return, but I would assume it's sometime next year. Yeah, look, it's so crazy to see that, Prochazka's only had 3 fights in the UFC thus far. This guy is, and Pereira obviously being his 4th, right? He was very fast-tracked. He fought Volkan Ozdemir, and then he fought Dom Reyes. He obliterated Reyes, and then obviously he had that war with Teixeira, and then he was honestly losing that fight up until that 5th round, but nonetheless became champ. He had, I don't know, was it his shoulder? I think he messed up, right? It was his shoulder. Mm-hmm. So it's been almost a 17-month layoff. Now looking to fight Alex Pereira. I think there's optimism for Yuri, right? Obviously, we don't know how he stands as a fighter right now. We don't know how he's going to look in the octagon after such a long time off. But, Pereira, his wrestling looked improved against Jan to an extent. But to be honest, looked a little slower, in my opinion, against Jan. He didn't look as fast and as explosive as he did against Izzy. Okay. And, Jan's also 40 years old. This isn't Jan from... When did he fight Glover? 3-4 years ago. So it was a different Jan that Glover and Alex fought, right? But Yuri, he's 30 years old. He's a lot faster than Jan. I don't know if his wrestling's the same. His striking's definitely better than Jan's. So I think this is, not to say scary matchup for Alex, because that's just false. But I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Alex. I think he's going to need to make some, modifications to his fighting style. If he fights Yuri the same way he fought Jan, I could see him get finished personally by Yuri. So with that being said, right now I'm slightly favored towards Yuri, but that could change as we get closer to the fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Alex wins, obviously, right? He was the middleweight champ, and we saw how deadly he was against one of the greatest middleweights of all time. But now you're moving up to guys who are bigger, they're not faster, but they're stronger. And we see the knockout power that Yuri has too, right? So I don't know, man. I think Alex will be fine. He just needs to make some adjustments up until then. We got like 6-7 weeks. He has the time.
Yeah, I think probably in this fight, out of all things, I just can't see this fight going the distance.
No.
Like I'm picturing this fight in my head, and I just cannot see one of these guys coming out with a decision victory. I feel like both guys have proven that they're susceptible, and both guys clearly have the power to get the job done. And obviously the skill. So I mean, I think it's a fight that is guaranteed fireworks, and I am counting down seconds. And I mean, it's in our home state, so if the tickets go down from like $1,000 for the nosebleeds,
if they go down, yes.
But
I'm sneaking in.
The tickets are retarded at MMA.
Dude, I think I was looking at nosebleeds for like my birthday, and it's the month after. It was like $800.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. It's like a G to sit somewhere where you can even see the fighters.
You have to be looking at the big screen. You can't even look at the octagon. You're squinting.
Exactly.
And I have bad eyes to begin with, so
yeah, you're paying like I mean, I guess at this point, UFC's almost charging $100. So you could say, you'd be spending like $920 something more dollars just to go and watch the fight.
And spend $150 on pretzel and popcorn or whatever.
Yeah, literally, and the water.
Yeah, water.
But
$25.
Yeah, no. I hate sporting venues are just.
I think it's also just MSG. I mean, MetLife can be a rip, but it's not comparable to MSG. I mean, obviously MSG is like. No, the Grand Prix. Arena. Yeah.
But yeah, that they make it impossible for the average day fight fan like me and Aiden.
Yes.
At 20 years old to get that swing that. So MMA Long Island probably won't be representing, but nonetheless, we'll move on. Another fight there, Frivola versus Benos, BDS, whatever you want to
call that's actually happening?
Yeah, so that fight did get confirmed for 295. That's gonna be a
295
as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's going to be.
I think Frivola is going to be favored to lose, but
yeah, you think so? I mean, that's.
He'll definitely come in as the underdog.
Yeah.
I know, but trust me, I'm decent with odds and predicting.
No, you've been pretty good. You've been pretty solid. So I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. But let's go to the fight night now, and then early December, the fight night that's stacked. You got Rob Font welcoming Davison Figueiredo to a new division, and that fight will be freaking awesome in terms of the bantamweight division. I think Figgy is a guy who could really make some noise there, and is a guy that we really I think we kind of overlooked on the pod personally, because I forgot that he was moving up. And he's somebody that was really dangerous during his time at flyweight. So at bantamweight, I think he's gonna hold his own. I think he could maybe even, I mean, Rob Font's a guy that's tough to get out of there. I don't think he's still never been finished. If I'm not
He hasn't,
mistaken.
no.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if Figgy's gonna be able to get the finish on him, but I think Figgy, I would lean him to really dominate that fight. And then you look down for that fight night as well as Jared Cannonier versus Doldizy, and then Sean Brady.
Can't wait, Cannonier's versus Dolidze.
Yeah.
Where am I not? How am I not hearing any of this?
Well, now you're hearing right here. Breaking news on the MMA on the Island.
That's a big jump. Wait, that matchup kind of doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Dolidze just lost to Marvin Vettori, who just got obliterated by Jared Cannonier. So how is he going from the 8th ranked guy to the 3rd ranked guy? Or I know it's not your fault.
I just report.
I know, it's just, to my opinion, I don't understand how that makes sense.
No, yeah, I understand completely. I mean, I guess they're doing Cannonier dirty.
No, I think he'll be fine, dude.
Well, I mean, in terms of the fight itself, I mean, in terms of just the matchup, I'm not talking about the actual, like, when they lock into the cage. We're talking about, like, in terms of matchup and rankings. I mean, just beat Vettori, and now he's going against a guy who's 2 spots lower than Vettori, coming off a loss to Vettori. So you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it doesn't really make sense.
What's Dolidze ranked 7, right?
Well, yeah, Dolidze's 7 and Cannonier's 4, Vettori's 5. So I mean, that's a fight that I mean, I guess middleweight had to kind of match up and move on, because you got the Costa Shimanev fight. But outside of that, it's gonna most likely be Strickland, DDP. Izzy, we'll get into his issues later, and then who knows when Whitaker and Vettori are coming back. So I mean, Cannonier, I guess, is somebody who wants to stay active. He was the backup for Strickland, Izzy, and now he gets Doldizy. But Sean Brady versus Kevin Gastelum is another fight where, I mean,
where are you getting this info? I think you're just pulling this out of your ass. But where are you getting these fights from?
So basically, I actually have a direct line to Dana. I tell him at the end of every conversation, I tell him himself. But yeah, he lets me know. I have my sources. But that's a fight I think Sean Brady's gonna dominate Kevin Gastelum.
You think so?
Yeah, I can't. I think
when are they fighting? 290 what? Or is that a fight night?
It's gonna be a fight night. I think all those 3 fights, if I read correctly, are in the same exact fight night, which is
actually
fire.
That's actually sick.
Yeah, that's a sick fight night.
How is Kelvin Gastelum getting this big jump? Like, no disrespect, but I mean, Brady, I think he's what, the 9th or 10th ranked welterweight. So I guess that makes sense. But the fact that he was going to fight Rachmanov, who was the 6th ranked, and he just beat Chris Curtis, who was the 15th ranked, that doesn't really make sense to me. But again, what the fuck do I know? I don't know anything. So.
Well, I think Gastelum's kind of I think he's somebody who the UFC, I don't know, they pick favorites. I think he's one.
I mean, and he's obviously had a good run in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely. But
I mean, it's hard to you have short memories, fight fans.
When you look at recently, though, I mean, he hasn't.
Dude, he literally, no bull crap. He lost like 6 out of his last 7.
Yeah, he's kind of really looked bad. So I don't know. I know he's coming down for this fight, so maybe that's
better.
The difference.
Looks like a block.
Yeah,
a door.
He's not like a door. That's crazy. But hopefully he comes back. Skinny Gastelum, not looking like a door. Maybe looking like a door with a 6-pack, and then gets the job done. But I can't see it happening. But then 296, the card in December that was supposed to be Connor Chandler. But what do you know? Who took the spot? Leon Edwards against the most undeserving championship shot of all time. Undebatable. And Colby Covington.
And new.
Still. You already went over this.
I know. My heart is really like I said, the only reason why I could see Colby winning, I just think he'll outwork Leon in that fight. I'm not to say Leon's shot was lucky against Kamaru, because luck only comes to those who work for it, right? It's always ironic. People are like, oh, he got lucky. This, that, and the other. Luck comes to those who work for it. People create their own luck, in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. So Leon was training for that moment, and his moment happened last August. But let's not ignore the facts though. He was getting dominated by Usman outside of that first round for 3.5. That fifth round was relatively even up until that last, but even still, he would have lost 3-2 or 4-1. And in that second fight, Leon looked vastly improved. But on the opposite of that, Usman started to show signs of aging in that fight, in my personal opinion. And it's so tricky, right? Because Colby's not young. And that's what sucks. I was looking at it recently. I think the last time he fought twice in a year was 2018. I think that was when he fought. Yeah. No. I was looking at this. I think he fought Lawler. I forgot who he fought before Lawler.
Retired.
Who?
I said I was just mentioning he's retired.
Yeah, he is retired.
Just because you know the argument.
That 30-something second knockout against Seiko Price. What a way to end a career. But yeah, and in 2019 he fought Usman for the belt. The end. In 2020 he fought Woodley. In 21 he fought Usman again. And then actually that was the quickest turnaround he might have had because he fought Usman in November and then he fought Masvidal in March. So that was a 4-month hiatus, which is in Colby's world it's pretty active. Yeah. And then who did he fight twice in 19 or 18?
It was 19 and it was Lawler, and then it was so in August it was Lawler, the decision, and then he ended up getting finished by Usman later that
I know the outcome of that fight.
Yeah.
I don't need you to reiterate that.
Just so you know.
Wait, it was August to November or December? December.
August to December, yeah.
Okay. And then Colby said he wants to fight 3 or 4 times a year. I don't think that's happening. But if Colby wins, Bilal should just retire. Because if Colby wins, if Leon wins, it's blatantly obvious that Bilal is getting that next title shot. I think as Edwards even said Bilal was way more deserving. So if that happens, Bilal's definitely getting the belt. Probably, well, not the belt, but he'll get that fight probably. I would assume the first half of next year because I don't think Edwards wants to say this inactive. I just think there was, a big conflict between the two parties and getting a fight signed. I know Edwards didn't want to fight Colby initially, not because I don't think it's necessarily because it's Covington. It's the guy was undeserving of the fight. And I'm a big Colby fan, but anybody could sit there and say he's deserving of the fight on paper is wrong. It's just because he attracts views. And you know what? That's up to the other fighters as well. You can't get mad at somebody for getting these opportunities when you're not doing what he's doing. You don't have to market yourself the way he does because the way he markets himself can be there's no such thing, I guess, as professionalism. It's the fight business. But he
problematic.
Very problematic. That's a great way to describe it. It's definitely not PG-13, right? No. But a lot of these guys, they don't market themselves. I don't know. And I know at the end of the day, all that matters is you win the fight, but you can't get the big fight if you don't present yourself. So a lot of these guys need to work on that. But with that being said, Colby is a workhorse. He applies pressure constantly, and he can get knocked down twice in a fight. It literally happened both fights with Usman. He got knocked down twice in the 5th round the first time, and then twice in the 2nd round the second time. And then he ended up finishing that fight relatively strong the second fight. And obviously that first fight, Mark Goddard Mark Goddard wanted to, I guess, call it a wrap, which was bullshit. Not because I'm a Colby fan, again, but there's 50 seconds left in the championship fight. He's in a sprawl position. The shots look kind of to the back or the side of the head. Colby still had his wits about him, and Goddard was like, and who knows what that fight could have went 3-2. That fight would have been a split decision, or that definitely would have been a split decision for Usman because he was going to win that round. And then one judge had it 2-2 for Usman, the other one had it 3-1 for Usman, so he probably would have split. So I guess the outcome wouldn't have changed. But enough with that rant. Nobody's seeing how Colby. He doesn't really post on Instagram much. He doesn't really show clips of him training. Maybe as we get closer to the fight, he'll show like how his camp's been. But I doubt that because Colby usually likes to keep quiet until the fight, which is fine. That's his choice, right? But like I said, father time or mother time, whatever they call it, is not slowing for anybody. So 18 months of not getting the octagon is a very long fucking time, in my opinion. And I don't know. Edwards looks like he's getting better every fight. I'm rooting for Colby, but my brain is telling me Edwards. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Edwards, and I think he's gonna win. But I want to talk a little bit about that promotion things. I think you brought up a great point, and I think a lot of people are upset about the fact that that Colby Covington is getting this shot. But they have to understand, and this is a part that frustrates me as well as a fight fan, because I think it's the only sport in the world where somebody who's undeserving can get a shot at a championship. Because in every other sport, you can call robberies of some sorts or missed calls or all this other stuff, and 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 jargon depending on what sport you're talking about. But at the end of the day, MMA is the only sport where someone who truly really doesn't maybe deserve the fight can get the fight. But I think it comes down to promoting yourself, and I can't blame the UFC for making this matchmaking. And you know me, I'm not a Dana guy, but I think that Colby Covington is going to bring the views. He's going to bring the numbers. I think he's going to bring the eyeballs. People love him or hate him, either want to really see him win in terms of Aodhan, something like that, or really want to see him lose because a lot of people hate the guy. So, but that's the kind of figure that he has.
That's my point.
Created.
Exactly.
And since this fight has gotten announced, he's started ramping up, started the gears turning. He started talking about maybe fighting Islam and going down, and maybe fighting.
That would be hype though.
So, but all those matchups. But he's a guy that brings attention, and Belal Muhammad is not going to bring attention. He's not going to be someone that you can headline a card with unless
you can't even headline a fight night with him. I drag.
Unless it's absolutely stacked. So you had to have the Belal Muhammad hate in there. But nonetheless, I think it is a testament to these fighters and the promotion. That's why I don't mind Bryce Mitchell. I'll talk about him running his mouth, but at the end of the day, these guys got to promote themselves. So Bryce Mitchell is saying that, he's this guy. Maybe he's not that guy right now. But, I like to see these fighters starting to get more comfortable in the mic and starting to kind of assert themselves, because that's the way that you get big fights. Think of the promos. When they're cutting those promos, it's the guys who are, there's so many, they're, yelling at each other at a press conference, or just, making their case on the mic after a win, or et cetera, et cetera. But either way, that's how you promote a fight. It's these two guys that either don't like each other, or are extremely talented, or are really good on the mic. And right. you got to have a balance of all three if you want to make it in this sport. So I can't hate the decision for this matchup personally, but I do lean Leon.
Yes,
as we talked about.
I'm just
earlier.
Real quickly on that before we move on to the next topic. I am a little nervous though if Colby wins that fight. Obviously, it's gutsy. I'm gonna say it's gutsy. Well, yeah, it's gutsy for Colby if he decides to fight Islam, because Islam he would lose his belt. Obviously, he would have nothing to gain out of that fight if he loses. I know that's an obvious statement, but Islam would have an opportunity to get both belts. Colby, it's not like, I'm trying to think of a good way to word this. It's not like if Colby loses that fight to Islam, right? I don't think he would get a immediate rematch against Islam. And he's already gotten too much. This is going to be his third title opportunity already. He's not even getting a defense that wouldn't warrant an immediate rematch. So if he loses this fight against Islam, I could see maybe a retirement. And even if he doesn't fight Islam, right? Colby's recent inactivity has shown that he might stall the division again. And like I said before, at this age, you're not getting any younger. You're not to say you can't get more technical, but athletically, you're on your decline, right? Your metabolism goes down. You're just not the same as you were 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I don't think Edwards would do that. I think the only reason and he's still fighting twice this year, right? So that's normal for a fighter. I still think the reason that there's been this much inactivity in the top of that division was just because they couldn't get an agreement, not because Edwards doesn't want to fight. He wants to be one of the greats, and I think he can, but he has to get past Colby first. And I don't know if Colby is willing to have that same activity as Edwards and Usman. And that's one thing I'll talk about Usman, right? As I know Joe is a big fan of Usman, as I am. But Usman can be corny on social media. He could say the stupidest things, but people really, especially now that we have a different champion, his title reign goes unappreciated because, granted, he fought 3 guys, right? He only fought 3 guys in his 5 defenses. Masvidal twice, Colby twice, and Gilbert once. But those 5 fights were like I think he won the belt. When did he win the belt? In 19, and then he lost the belt. So he had 5 defenses in 3 years, which is, that's almost 2. I think it's almost 2 years. And then in 2020, he had the 3 defenses. Yeah, it was 2020. He had 3 defenses. And, he fought Masvidal back-to-back. You want to talk about undeserving? Masvidal, he had that boring fight against Masvidal the first time. And Masvidal didn't even need to get a win to have the second fight with Usman. And then obviously got put to sleep in the second round of that fight. And if he was to have beaten Gilbert Burns back in May, he might have jumped Colby to get that title shot against. I'm talking if he knocked him out, not got a decision. If he, let's say, knocked out Gilbert, he might have been getting the title shot against Leon, because I guess there was some history with the whole backstage, drama and whatnot a couple years back. He might have jumped Colby to get that shot. And I guarantee not the same people who were bitching about Colby getting that fight would not have been complaining if Masvidal got that third title opportunity. It's just because people don't like Kobe, and like Joe mentioned earlier, you don't have to like the guy, but if you're talking about the guy and you want to watch him fight to see him lose, you're still tuning into watching him fight. You're still spending the $80 to watch him lose, and that puts money in his pocket. Put money in his pocket. These people get points. They get pay-per-view points. The more pay-per-views that are sold, the more money they'll get. So you're only doing them a justice, and you're only doing yourself a disjustice by talking about the guy and yet supporting them.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's move on here and let's talk
we talked
about
for 30 minutes.
Pantoja versus Royval, which is the co-main and another championship bout, a rematch of a fight that we saw back in 2021 that Pantoja was able to get the round 2 submission. And coming back from this one, Royval had 3 straight wins now, after losing 2 to 2 champions in Brandon Moreno and Pantoja. So those losses aged well. But outside of that, he has, been looking dominant, 2 straight first round finishes, and it's a fight I'm excited for those guys to get back in. The flyweight division is hot right now, I feel. So I think that these guys, I think it's going to be another war. I see it's another fight very similar to how we saw Moreno Pantoja, where it was just back and forth. I could very well see something very, very similar with these 2 flyweights.
Absolutely. I'm looking at Royval's recent fight history. So he's had 7 fights in the UFC up to date, and he's only had 1 fight go the distance, and that was a split decision against Rogerio Bontorin. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of that guy before. But nonetheless, he had that. I remember watching his performance against Matthews Nicolau, who was a 5th-ranked guy, and that was bullcrap. This was, April 15th? Okay, Holloway versus Allen. That was actually on the prelims. I don't know, and I think Dana acknowledged that he made a mistake. How do you have two top 5 contenders of their respective weight classes fight on a prelims of a fight night? I don't know what they were what he was thinking, but nonetheless, he had a dominant first round finish against Nicolau, and then he submitted Matt Schnell, who I think is ranked number 8 in that division. And then he had those 2 losses against the 2 previous champs. You can't knock him for losing to the champs, right? And then before that, though, he knocked out Carl Franz. He knocked out Tim Elliott. So this guy, he's beaten some big names in this division, and he's young. He's 31 years old, and he's big for that weight class. He's kind of like O'Malley, right? O'Malley's 5'11", 135. He's 5'9", 125. And let's see. And Pantoja's at 5'5", and I'm pretty sure I don't know what his reach is. I don't think he has a significant reach advantage, but that height plays a big factor, and we saw how deadly Pantoja can be on the feet. Although I think Moreno got the better of him in a good bit of exchanges in that fight back in July. Pantoja is still very good on the feet, and obviously he's a great wrestler. I mean, he had a significant amount of takedowns against Moreno back in July. So this is an interesting matchup. I think we're going to see an ANU. I think although he lost the first fight, and he's obviously favored to lose right now, or he's predicted to lose rather. I wouldn't be surprised if Royval gets the job done and finishes him, actually. And I would be a little disappointed if they had an immediate trilogy instead of Moreno getting the immediate trilogy, which is what a lot of fight fans wanted to see. Moreno, Pantoja 3, because that fight, in my opinion, currently to this day, if I had to vote, that would be my fight of the year. Man, Moreno and Pantoja. Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of people would agree with me on that statement. So if he didn't get the trilogy, I don't know how Pantoja would get a trilogy with Royval right off the bat. But we'll see what happens. Royval has to win the fight first, so this is all speculation. But that's just my opinion.
But it's gonna be fireworks nonetheless. And Royval guy, like you said, not accustomed to going the distance. So this fight, I think one guy finds the finish. Who will it be? I have no freaking clue. I think these guys are freaking another fight where it's very, very even, very close. But a fight where I don't know if I think it's very, very close. It's the next one on 296. Shavkat Rachmanov. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Couldn't get it for a second. Rachmanov against Wonderboy Thompson. So Wonderboy Thompson gets what he wanted in terms of a matchup of a guy who is higher ranked than him, 6'7", at welterweight. But boy, does he have a test in front of him?
Does he have a test in front of him? It doesn't make sense, though. I mean, it does make sense because he obviously declined that matchup with Gary, but he has a lot more to lose against fighting somebody like Gary than Rachmanov. Rachmanov, like you mentioned, is already a spot above him. He beats a guy like Rachmanov. Maybe he beats a guy like, Kamaru next year, hypothetically. And then that would warrant him a title shot, right? Kamaru is one of the best welterweights of all time, but he has to get past Rachmanov. If he loses to Ian Gary, not only is he going to fall significantly, he's going to have a big drop in the rankings, 5 or 6 spots, but it would take him that much longer to fight for a title fight. And Wonder Boy is 41 years old. The last time he fought was last December, so it's basically almost going to be a year to date from his previous fight. And he'll be 42, I think, the summer, around that time. I looked at it recently, around the summer of next year. This guy has maybe, I can count with my hand, fights left in the UFC. He doesn't have a lot of fights left. And if he keeps this level of activity, he'll fight once or twice a year. He'll fight for a belt. By that trajectory, in 2026, 2025, will be 43 years old at the time. So a win over Rachmanov would put him in the right direction. It's definitely a smart move by Thompson. But yeah, man, Rachmanov is deadly. He is deadly. But that fight with Jeff Neal back in March, Jeff Neal was winning some exchanges with him. Obviously, Rachmanov indecisively, he undoubtedly won each round. But Neal showed that he could stang and bang with him, and Rachmanov there's vulnerabilities to his game as well. There's obviously vulnerabilities to everybody's fight game, but when you finally see them for the first time, it's almost like, oh crap, it's a surreal moment. And I don't know if Wonder Boy's gonna. Wonder Boy is a phenomenal kickboxer, but at this late in his career, I don't know if he'll be able to do so. I think he'll get finished. I'm gonna be a realist. I think he's getting finished.
No, I think unfortunately Wonder Boy is one of the guys, and they're 14 episodes deep now, so I can't remember exactly everything I've said. But Wonder Boy is one of those guys that got me into the UFC. He's somebody who I fell in love with his karate style. I thought he reminded me of when you play like Tekken, and I forget the guy's exact name, but those kind of games of the Mortal Kombats of the world, where he has that just karate style, just bouncing. And obviously he can, kick you and punch you from anywhere. So I was a big Wonder Boy guy. And he's had a great UFC career, but looking at this matchup, man, it's scary for Wonder Boy. I mean, I think he still got it. He's not somebody that I feel like Shevchenko. I mean, I think they both kind of lost the step, but I feel like Wonder Boy still looks sharp. Obviously when he has the luxury of the right size octagon, the normal dimensions. When they're in the apex a little smaller, it's a little bit more issues for a long rangy striker who really can't wrestle like Wonder Boy. But Wonder Boy is somebody who at this point in his career, I can't see, developing and elevating himself to a point where he can stop, these takedowns. Though I think that's, Rachmanov, is that where he's going to go the fight? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I could see them standing and trading, and that would give Wonder Boy a shot. But it is a matchup where I'm like, man, Wonder Boy did get what he wants. I guess what he deserves as well. But it's tough pickings. At 40 years old. But let's keep going down the list here, and I've so many things to say. But let's talk about it. Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. I just said I have so many things to say. I just want you to sit with that reality for a second. This is the world we live in 2023. You look at 2020. This is 3 years ago.
How many fights does he have left on his contract? Because he needs to be cut.
Tony Ferguson.
It's actually like pissing me off at this point. I'm not even empathizing with the guy anymore. I want him out.
No, he's a danger to himself. Tony Ferguson.
He's tarnishing the last bit of legacy he has.
Is somebody who.
I mean, not that's already me writing him off because I hate Paddy. I hope he wins. And I hope he beats Paddy. Goodness. But I don't think a win over Paddy Pimblett, people will be like, oh, the comeback is real. He's coming back. Dude, it's Paddy fucking Pimblett. Like, relax. But that's the contrary effect, right? If he loses to Paddy Pimblett, people are going to be like, dude, not only did you just get embarrassed by Bobby Green a couple months ago, you just lost to the most annoying fighter in 155. And like, what are you doing? You need to retire. I'm looking at right now to see how many fights he has left on his contract.
I mean, I don't know if that's information that you're going to necessarily find.
Yeah, you're right.
Because the fighter contracts, which is something I think is very weird that the MMA, and I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I know it's been a conversation and topic in the community that that these fight out of all, exactly how much Patrick Mahomes is making, exactly how much LeBron James is making, but you don't know how much and how many fights are left on these guys' contracts. The fact that it's still kind of a mystery, is just is bizarre. But I mean, man, Tony coming back and against a guy like Paddy Pimblett, I think honestly, this is his best chance at a victory. Paddy is somebody who looked very exploitable. He lost his last fight in everybody's eyes with the three judges ringside. Um, but it's just the way Tony's looked, it just looks like he has nothing left in the tank, like literally zero. And Paddy's obviously young and very fresh. He hasn't fought in quite some time now. Haven't had to hear his annoying
Yeah, his
voice.
last fight he lost to Jared Gordon.
Yeah, I mean he won, but he lost.
I know.
But it's ridiculous. But it's ridiculous matchmaking, and honestly, in my opinion, I'm gonna be honest, I think it's disrespectful. Honestly, if you're talking about, if you're the UFC, Dana White, Tony Ferguson has 22 fights in the organization. He's somebody who's a former interim champion, somebody who's challenged for the belt, and was supposed to fight Khabib multiple times, challenged for the belt, the interim twice in his career. And it's just somebody who has so many fans. El Kukui, what was it, a 12-fight win streak that he went on at one point?
Yep,
That
exactly
12-fight
12.
win streak that ended 3 years ago. When he ran into Justin Gaethje post-COVID, or right in the midst of COVID, I should say. He's somebody that was, you talk about legendary fighters, like that era of El Kukui is a legendary fighter. He's somebody that, I'll tell my kids about El Kukui, but if you're Dana and you're the organization, how are you not protecting your fighter and doing him a favor and being like, look, I can't have you. I can't have you here fighting against guys who are younger and hungrier and at this point in their career still on the upward trajectory.
That Bobby Green fight
really
made sense because Bobby's like 35, 36 years old. Tony's almost 40.
Yeah,
Patty's 29.
But you look at what Bobby did to him, and that should have been all you needed to see, because he made Bobby Green look elite, and Bobby Green is
not elite.
He's mid. Let's be honest.
That's a good way to say it. I'm not gonna say he's bad,
but it's like, but I mean, as it's just disrespectful to the fighter, and he's really exploiting Tony at this point in his career for his name value, because I'm gonna watch Tony fight, regardless of the fact that he's kind of on his last legs here. But that's exploitation at its finest, taking advantage of somebody who wants to fight, but clearly the consensus is he shouldn't be fighting anymore. Yet we stand here and he has his matchup against Paddy Pimblett. Where will this fight go? I have no freaking clue.
Paddy's already like a 3 or 4-1 favorite against Ferguson, which makes sense.
But I could see Paddy getting the job done. I'm hoping Tony's able to hang on at least and not get finished.
Can you retire after this fight, please, Tony? Like, I'm like almost begging you. I'm not even trying to plead with you. I'm begging you.
I think the entire community is begging. We're on our hands and knees. Like we don't want to see him
get. Like honestly, I don't give a shit if it's Tony Ferguson at this point. That fight should be moved to the prelims. Like that could be like the prelim headliner, but I don't want that shit on the main card. I'm buying that fight regardless, right? I don't want my $90 to be spent on watching Tony Ferguson possibly get embarrassed by Paddy Pimblett. That's like $15 down the drain, $20 down the drain. No, but that fight should not be on them. In that card, and I was talking to Joe about this the other day. I was texting him. Yeah. This card so far had potential, in my opinion, to be card of the year. Obviously, in contention with 290, because 290 was a phenomenal card from top to bottom, right? And I thought this card was Rachmanov Thompson, Roy Val Pantoja, Edwards Covington, and I think Luque and Gary. I forgot about that fight. I don't know if that's going to be the featured prelim or if that's going to make the card, but that's another super interesting fight at welterweight. That's like the 10th and 11th ranked guy, Luque. He's making a comeback after that kind of a snooze fest with RDA, but he had to knock some rust off. I think was he in an accident or car accident or something like that? I forgot what happened with him. Was something wrong with his brain?
I think it was after his last bout. He took a decent amount of significant strikes, and then he had some brain issues and a brain injury that was almost to the point where he wasn't gonna be able to fight again. But thankfully, obviously, he's back in there. And let's talk about that fight right now. That's the last matchup that we have to get into. And Aodhan, that might be one of my favorites sneakily, man. I really like this matchup because I think Ian Gary is gonna bring out the best in Vicente Luque. Because I think Luque, when he's at his best, he's been in some wars and he is, can bang. And obviously we saw what Ian Gary was able to do against a guy like Neil Magny last time he was out there, where he just put it on him. And I'm just really excited for this fight. I think it's gonna be one of those fights where it's a really perfect matchup. I think these two guys are gonna bring out the best in each other. I do lean Ian Gary to get the victory because I think Luque getting older. And I
He's not
just
old. He's like
I just
31, 32. He's
yeah,
not
he's a little old, but
yeah.
I mean, I think Ian Gary. I think he's just a little quicker and I think a little more accurate than Luque at this point. So I think the grappling of Luque could make the difference, but I think Ian Gary's going to be able to stay on his feet and get the job done. But that's a fight that I got started. I can't miss that one.
I know.
In that fight card.
I can't wait. It's gonna be a good card. Hopefully, Tony Ferguson pulls out.
No, no, yeah, no. He pulls out and then pulls back in and knocks Patty Pimblett out in the first round, and then we all celebrate. Yeah, we're getting
December is good. I still can't believe
have
that.
confetti and stuff if Tony Ferguson wins. We're gonna get a nice.
Dude, I still can't believe that
Yeah.
December 2nd card has that like those 3 good fights on it.
Oh,
That's
dude, yeah,
that's insane.
they UFC doing the fans some favors here, though. I don't know whether it's I don't know what the other fight nights are in December outside
Misha
of that.
Tate.
So I mean, it's there's Misha Tate. Is that the one I missed?
Julia Avila versus Misha Tate.
Okay, well there you go.
All right.
Misha Tate's return once again. That's it. So let's get into the last of the headlines. We'll start quickly. Nate Diaz. There was it was reported that he, put somebody to sleep, choked somebody out on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And the case has now been settled. It ended up being that the guy was trying to, you know, I'm blanking on the word. Trying to initiate a fight with Nate, and and obviously attacked him first. So Nate, just defending himself, put him right to bed. On right on the sidewalk, and so that's Nate. Beat the case. I love Nate Diaz. Stockton forever. Keep doing you, Nate. And if you're a regular pedestrian, a PSA, don't challenge a professional MMA fighter in a street fight. What sense does that make in your brain? Especially somebody who Nate Diaz, who has, I mean, he has fought plenty in his time in mixed martial arts, but he's probably fought double, triple, quadruple that in the actual streets.
Yeah.
What makes you think you can beat Nate Diaz in a fight? I don't care how old he is. Nate Diaz was 60 years old and was crippled. I don't want to go anywhere near that, man.
Because you know what it is? I think people look at his body. Oh, he looks like shit. He looks like a bag of milk. There's no muscle. And they're like, oh, I could take him. He's old. He's 40. He's like not old there.
Yeah.
And then they're humbled quickly because Nate Diaz is still that guy.
Yeah, and then they go to bed. But in other news, very interesting. The Sean Strickland effect is real. Izzy just got charged with a DUI in Australia. The blood alcohol content's different. Their laws are different than the US. So I mean I think it was the limits like 50 and he was at 88, something like that. To drive. They're talking about milligrams. See, I don't know the comparison to that in blood alcohol content in the US. But nonetheless, was drunk driving. So, the post championship L Blues getting to Izzy. He should, he's a guy who's made a lot of money in the organization, so he should be fine. But definitely concerning behavior from somebody who's supposed to be the face of the organization. And funny enough, and I forgot to mention this for the headlines, and I guess we'll finish it with it. UFC 5 fighters so far are now. I mean, I guess Shevchenko draw, but technically she didn't win the belt, so technically now, I guess you could say if you don't win the championship, you lost it. Then now 0-2. It is Shevchenko and Izzy, and the third piece of the domino is Volk. Volk said he wants to fight in January. He just posted.
He wanted to fight at the end of the year, honestly, but he didn't get to fight.
So then to put him into Topuria in January, Volk is that last step. If Volk loses, I will be very upset. But let's hope that it ends there. In terms of the UFC 5 cover curse. But I mean, all these freaking these video game covers, man. These guys, they can't catch a break. I feel like if you get to the pinnacle of a sport, I'm on the cover, mom, look, and then they end up losing. It's like or getting hurt, so it's tough luck for those guys that end up being up there in terms of actual cover cover. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought. Let's move on. And let's go to far from unanimous. We talked about the matchup, so we won't go into it too crazy, but let's start. Aiden, favorite matchup announced this past weekend.
Do we even have to ask this question?
I mean,
All right. Obviously,
Leon versus Colby.
it's obviously Leon versus Colby, but taking away that fight, with the amount of fights you just announced, man, it's hard to tell. Like, there's that fight night card in December 2nd is stacked. Like, I think, of course, I lost the page. Why wouldn't I? But I want to see Jared Cannonier fight again. I think honestly, I'm not gonna say him to Dolidze because I don't really watch the Dolidze fight. If I could pick a card, it would be that. It would probably be that card behind 296. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Colby and Edwards because I can't give it a good second. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. I think my number one, just because of the championship implications, is gonna have to be Yuri Pereira. I'm a big fan of both guys. Both guys are killers, and like I said earlier, I don't think this fight goes the distance.
No,
I think one guy finds a finish, and it's just gonna be chaos when the octagon closes. So that's a fight that I'm really excited for. It's gonna be one that I can already feel my heart, getting a little bumps. Boom, 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 boom. Just the thought of it, as you fight fans know, that pre-fight anxiety. I'm already getting it thinking about that fight, just because I don't really want either guy to lose, but one of them has to.
But I'd be pissed if it ends in a draw.
Fucking draws, man.
What
was the?
They should have a 6th round, like they should have like an additional sudden death round.
So fire! That would be so fire.
They should, right? Maybe not a 5-minute round. Nah, fuck. Why would it be 3 minutes? Because you could obviously a lot could happen in the additional 2 minutes. They should just, and especially when they're all depleted and tired, that would really be the testament to see who wants it. They should have a sudden death round, in my opinion. Dana or the commission.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Far from unanimous. What to do about this draw situation? And I like that sudden death round idea, man. I really do. I mean, obviously, I talked about it in the earlier podcast. I'm a big proponent. Similar to Ariel Helwani, and the fact that I think open scoring is something that's great. I think that it would be something that would really help and just raise the stakes, and the moment of both guys knowing it's 2-2 instead of it kind of being up in the air. Obviously some strategies would change, and it would kind of change the fight game just a little bit in some instances. But I like open scoring. But for a fight to end in a draw, and then if it's a championship, have to go to a sudden death round, that would be freaking awesome.
Think of that, right? Like
they get two, so it's announced, and then cage locks again. They get like a minute to recover in the octagon.
Oh, that's like a few minutes actually. They're gonna get a big time to recover.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, like after it's announced, they're like, all right, let's get back to it.
The emotions behind the fires are probably like, come on. Maybe not like that, but inside they'd be like
a 30-minute fight. Yeah,
after
going 25.
But honestly, draws shouldn't be a thing for championship fights, right? Because then that not only holds up the division, but then it's another fight of the same two fighters. Like that can be exciting at times, but sometimes you don't want to see that happen, right? So just settle the dispute, find out who's the winner right there. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's something that I see the other side of it, and I'll play devil's advocate for a second, in the fact that guys or girls are gonna be kind of, after the fight's over, the adrenaline down, the dump, and they're kind of settled, and they're like, all right, let's see who won this fight. But I mean, if it's a close fight, then people are gonna have to keep staying amped and keep going. But I still love the idea. I think that would be awesome in terms of sudden death.
Maybe not. Then you could modify that a little bit. Maybe not like right after the cards is announced, but obviously before they announce the results, they have the results. So if they see on the score, if Bruce Buffer sees on the scorecard, he could talk to the referee and be like, yeah, we're not going anywhere before the end. That way the adrenaline doesn't go so far down.
Yeah, maybe, but I like that. Maybe potentially have both fighters stay. Maybe make it a new protocol where have the fighters stay in their corners like it was going to be another round, and then have Bruce just peruse potentially, and then if it does come out to a draw, he comes in and say, and we're going to a sudden, like
think how rare that is. How often do you see draws?
Exactly. Like, so it'd be something that would be quick. Once like
when was the last draw?
Times,
I think it might have. Easy. I could be missing one, but I think it was Woodley and Thompson 2, or no 1. I think it was Woodley Thompson 1.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which was fucking 6 years ago, 2017.
Full list of UFC draws. So let's see. So all right, these are going in opposite order here. Let's go to time. The last one, I mean, these are Ja Herbert versus Ludovic Klein, which was March of this year.
I meant like
Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menafield was in
Oh
majority.
yeah, I meant like championship fights.
Oh yeah, and then Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev.
Oh
That's
shit,
what it was.
I
That was
kind of
pretty
forget that one.
recent too.
I knew I was
Yeah.
missing one.
Yeah, that was the one that was very recent too, and that would be another one where I would have loved to just see him just go for one more round.
Exactly.
But that was a weird outcome. I mean, I remember this Shevchenko fight at least was exciting, with Grasso, but that fight I remember it was like not really exciting, and then ended in a draw. And Dana was in the press conference just pissed off, like that sucked.
Yeah,
and we're like, yeah, I know. But let's move on from far from unanimous because I would go to our least favorite matchup, but let's be honest, it's Tony versus Patty. That's it. End of segment. So let's move on to champ or chump, and I got a guy who's fighting in just a few weeks. And Khamzat Chimaev, I champ or chump, Khamzat Chimaev, Aodhan. This is one that I'm interested to hear your opinion because for me, it's a no-brainer in terms of which answer I'm choosing. But
it's champ. It's champ. I hope that's the one, dude. Chimaev, minus that Gilbert fight, where it was a close fight, but he still won that fight decisively. Chimaev has been unstoppable. He's 6-0 in the UFC. I think he had, up until that Gilbert fight, one significant strike landed on him. And then after that Gilbert fight, Holland landed 0 significant strikes on him. Like, this guy is, I don't think, he's like a creation in a lab. I've never seen, well, he was like that again prior to that Gilbert fight, but I've never seen a guy be so dominant in such a short tenure in the UFC thus far. And now fighting a guy like Paulo Costa, right? Paulo Costa, he's another one like Kobe. I think that Adesanya fight, I think that was a COVID year, I think it was 2020 when they fought. And after that, he fought Vittori in 21, and then in 22 he fought Rockhold, and now in 23 he's fighting Chimaev. He's very inactive as well, fighting once a year for multiple years, consecutively. So this is an interesting matchup, but a win over a guy with such a big name like Paulo Costa, and if he does it in dominating fashion, that would grant him a title shot. And that's what, like we mentioned, talking about Colby before, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be beating the best guy, but if you have such a big name, that's all the excuse you need to get another title shot, right? So beating a guy like Paulo, who's already contended for the belt, I think might even have him pass Duplessis, because although Duplessis is deserving of the belt, he technically said no because of a foot injury and whatever. I think Duplessis should get it. But I think, Strickland would be one of the easier paths for Chimaev to get and I love Sean Strickland. I think, the guy is tough as nails. He has such a unique fighting style. And people are like, oh, you could throw a 1-2. They would like to critique him. The guy is the UFC middleweight champion. You cannot talk any crap unless you've beaten the guy. And only 5 people have beaten the guy. And I promise you, none of you who are critiquing him are one of them. So you don't have a right to make fun of him or anything like that, because he'll fuck you up, he'll fuck me up. He'll fuck him, probably anybody you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say champ. I think it'll happen possibly next year, maybe 2025. I don't think he'll make that cut down to welterweight. I think he'll stick at 205. I'm sorry, 205. I think he'll go to 185. And then maybe, if he gets the 185 belt, or in a couple years' time, this is all down the road, he'll fight at 205. But there's no way I see him getting the belt at 170. The guy's just too big. And maybe he was just being lazy with that cut in that fight that was supposed to happen against Diaz. But 9 pounds, man, that's not something you forget. Like that sticks with you. That in a way, kind of tarnishes your reputation as far as, how committed you are to making weight and showing up. Because it's disrespectful to not only, the fight fans, it's disrespectful to the other fighter, because they just spent all this time putting in work for a camp to fight you, expecting you to make weight. And it's like a laugh in the face. He was closer to making 185 than he was to 170. Put that into perspective. It's like, it's messed up. But Dana was willing to give him a shot at 170 again, but that's obviously not happening because he's having to fight Paulo. So we'll see what happens. But if he fights Paulo, why would he cut down to 170 at that point when he's one fight away from the belt, or he'll have a title shot next? Even if he has to wait out until mid-24, I'm sure he'll do it. But I don't think that's what he wants, because I know he wants to stay active. It was just not what happened this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to have to agree. I think
You thought I was gonna
Hamzat
say Trump?
Chimaev is going to be champ. No, I wasn't really sure because I mean with the weight issues and the inactivity and some of the stuff surrounding him, there is some question marks of somebody who is seemingly you're talking about a year ago. I say pre the Gilbert Burns fight, you're saying that dude is going to be a champion, especially in if you think of the middleweight division and guys where the top guys really aren't great wrestlers. So, and that's why I think he has such an advantage there on the ground that it doesn't matter if it's Strickland. I mean, Duplessis obviously would be a little more difficult. He has a little more, I think, of a wrestling base than, someone like Strickland who just mostly stands and bangs. But I mean, if he's able to get past Paulo Costa and can prove that he can withstand the power at 185, because I say that's my one issue is that, Gilbert Burns, caught him a pretty good amount. Obviously, he wasn't at any point, in significant danger of being finished in that fight. But I think it's something where, you gotta consider Paulo Costa is probably the most powerful puncher in middleweight, at 185. So I think if he's able to get past this test, I think he'll be, well on his way to a championship fight and victory. But I say don't sleep on Paulo Costa. I mean, I'm still gonna say champ for Khamzat Chimaev, but I think people are overlooking this fight with Paulo Costa. I think they're just gonna say he's gonna walk right through him. I think Costa, although recently he hasn't looked fantastic, I think he's had a lot of time, and I think we might see a really improved version of Costa, and he's obviously really strong, so it's not going to be easy for Hamzat.
I think this fight benefits. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off at the end. I think this fight benefits Costa as much as it benefits Chimaev, right? Because like I mentioned before, I'm not gonna say it again, but Chimaev, I'm gonna have to say it again. If Chimaev beats Costa, that could possibly warrant him a title shot. But the same thing on the opposite side, right? If he beats this, what's been made out to be this indestructible figure in Khamzat Chimaev, that might get him a shot at the belt. I mean, Izzy already said he'd be willing to fight the winner of that fight. Well, that was him beating Strickland. Obviously, that didn't happen. But, if Strickland's game to fight whoever, he just wants to make money. And that's one thing you respect because he's not going to sit out for a long period of time. The guy's active. He fought 3 times this year. He'll probably fight 2 or 3 times again next year. So he'll be willing to fight either of them. He doesn't care, right? So the winner of this fight could potentially fight for the belt next. So the stakes are high for both of these fighters. I don't think Khamzat is going to be. I'm sorry. I don't think Paulo is going to come into this fight as lackadaisical as he kind of was against Luke Rockhold because I thought he was going to finish Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold looked tired and worn out at the end of the first round, and somehow he managed to stay in the fight the remaining 2 rounds. I just think that was Paulo being lazy. And there was no sense of urgency to finish that fight. This fight, he can't afford to be like that if he wants to fight for the belt again. If he just wants to make money, I know he signed a good deal with the UFC, then fine, do that. But I don't know what his motive and his intentions are at this point of his career because he's like 32, like I said. So he needs to fight the opposite of how he was back in last August, and I think he'll come in a different fighter.
Absolutely. So I think we both agree champ status for Khamzat Chimaev in the future. And I'm looking forward to him being more active following this upcoming pay-per-view because I mean it's somebody that is just brings so much excitement and he's somebody that knows how to market himself. But he's, you've heard all the stories of him training. We've obviously seen it in the octagon. He's just a certified killer, and yeah. I can't wait to see him back in there. That's a fight that I'm really excited for, and a fight that I think most fight fans kind of have booked off. But let's get into Aodhan's favorite segment, or most frustrating segment, whatever you want to call it.
Are we both 3 apiece? 3-3?
I think we're both 4-2 at
4-2. Damn,
yeah, we've done 6 already.
I think the last 2 weeks were a little easier.
Yeah,
I think we got.
So I think we're gonna up the difficulty, and I got my guy to up the difficulty for you.
Do you?
Mr. Aodhan, whenever you are ready.
All right, fuck it. All right, I'll pick my guy in a minute.
All right. So it's time for guess who? Aodhan's turn. Both 4-2.
All right, you want to set a timer for 30?
Up the difficulty a little bit. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Gotta make sure I'm playing fair.
Whenever you are ready, sir, it is time for guess who.
All right. This is a waste of a question, but I don't know if you're trying to screw me here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this fighter male?
Yes.
Okay. I had to ask. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Does this fighter fight at or above 170?
No.
I don't like that pause there.
I love doing this.
You love this. You love this suspense.
It's the little things. It's the little things.
All right. Does this fighter fight at 135?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Nice. Bingo.
All right. Oh, I'm good with these,
Wow.
baby. You messed up. Is this fighter currently ranked?
Perhaps. It's a possibility.
Is it, yes.
I'd say it's possible that the answer is yes. I'd say 99% possibility the answer is yes. 0.9. 999999999.
I don't like that. All right, whatever.
All right, yes, he's right.
He's right. Okay.
It is on a fire.
Is he ranked 11 through 15?
Yes. Wow. He's
All right.
hot. He's hot. He got
Trying to think.
5 to work with 5 fighters. He could
The
really...
problem is I don't know these rankings as good as I know 55 and 70, so this is gonna be tough.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw a guess out here. Is this fighter Chris Gutierrez?
Wow.
That was him?
Wow. 6 guesses, my man.
My man. Yo, that wasn't bad.
Was quick.
That was, yo, I'm not gonna lie.
That
I
was
think Umar was
quick.
the only one I would have gotten. Actually, I
That
probably
was
could have figured it out.
quick.
I don't know who 15 is actually. Jonathan Martinez, I think, right?
No, that's Gutierrez is 15. Adrian Yanez,
Martinez is 13.
and Jonathan Martinez. I forgot Jonathan Martinez even existed.
So did I. I forgot honestly how he even looked like.
Remember, Yanez is going to be a good fight in
He's fighting Yanez?
Yeah, then a couple weeks in October on a fight night.
Yeah,
2 fight nights.
That's hype. I got that. Okay, I see it. I'm happy with my performance.
Wow.
Who said it like that? Oh, George St. Pierre. I'm happy with my performance.
Yes.
That was a bad.
No. I think you might be confusing it with.
It was definitely GSP.
But it was like I am not impressed with your performance. I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And he
I think
fought.
you got it confused.
And he was talking about Michael Bisping, right?
Yeah, or somebody. I forget. He went. They did one of those things where he was back in the octagon when they bring the guy that wasn't that guy who was most likely the next contender who just won. You bring the champion, and he came in and he was on the mic. And GSP is a legend, and I think top 1, 2 all time in MMA. Outside of John Jones. So I think that he didn't really have to be incredible on the mic. He has an infectious personality. So he was just like, I'm not impressed with your performance. I'm like, I love you, GSP. Like you're so wholesome. Wholesome GSP. Yeah. But what a performance. And now
dude, that's not gonna be your
I have that. So I mean it's not 3 guesses.
Was it 3 or 4 you got yours in?
It was 3. Which was
what? That's like unheard. But that was my fault though for giving it away when I was like, I said something stupid.
Yeah, because Paul Craig had just moved.
Yes, exactly. So yeah,
like, not anymore. And I was like,
gotcha.
So you say.
Yeah.
But without further ado, whenever Aodhan is ready, it is time for some guess. Oh man!
Actually, you know what? I think. All right, we'll see how you do on this one. It's either gonna be you're either not gonna get it, or you're gonna get it right away.
Okay, that's scary. All right. So whenever you're ready, I will make sure that it is just my Zoom that is up.
You might get it right away.
Guess who time? First question: is this fighter a female?
No.
Okay.
I had to throw that in there though. I was like, I don't know.
Listen, you threw it in there. I had to throw it right back. So I'm like, listen. I mean, he might be. When he's saying getting it right away, if I ask the same question, that was a hint off knowledge. Anyway, we'll keep going. Does this fighter fight at or below 155 pounds?
The answer is no.
No.
We said at or below, right?
At or below.
No, yeah, no.
All right. What about does he fight at or above 185 pounds?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So he's in those top 3. Is he ranked?
No.
Currently. No. Okay. Okay. So I think 4 questions is: has this fighter fought in the last 6 months?
No.
No. Oh boy, so it's had a little bit of a layoff.
I don't think I went OT with this. I think you'll be like frap if you don't get it.
All right, let's try to get.
Let's
try to get to the division.
I gotta stop.
Just wants to keep giving me hints. Does this fighter Let's shoot my shot. Does this fighter fight at light heavyweight?
No. All right.
Ooh.
4 left. All right.
Okay. Wow. So middleweight, not ranked. Let's see.
3 questions in a get.
Has this fighter ever competed for a championship?
Let me just. I'm confidently that the answer is no.
Okay.
But give me.
Good. Let's get that fact check going.
Let me hide my screen so you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is no. So you have what? 2 questions, I guess.
I have a feeling it's somebody who's pretty washed at this point in his career. Ooh, I might have a guess. You know what? I'm gonna shoot my shot. It's heavyweight or middleweight. I'm gonna go with a washed heavyweight. Is it Andrei Arlovsky?
No.
Ah, got me. I thought I got it. Okay.
You're gonna be upset
2
if
questions.
you don't get it.
2 questions. Left.
1 in a guess or 2 guesses.
Oof. I might have to just shoot my shot with guesses here. I don't really know. Middleweight here.
Or heavyweight.
Yeah. Middleweight or heavyweight. That's where we're at right now. And my questions have me in a freaking box right now. All right. Let's go with something that I guess narrows it down a little bit. They never changed like nah, I'm not gonna do that. I guess it's just narrow down. Is this fighter a middleweight fighter?
Yeah.
Fighting middleweight division.
All right, so you got 1 guess.
All right, so they fight in the middleweight division. I'm gonna go with someone who we were just talking about getting a matchup. Is it Kevin Gastelum?
No. You ready?
Who is it?
Derek Brunson.
Brunson. Brunson's not ranked anymore.
He got cut from the UFC
Oh,
because his matchup with Dolite fell through. That's why when you told me Dolite's fighting Canadian, I was like, what?
Oh, he did get booted. You're right. Wow. Okay. Oh, and Kevin Gastelum's ranked 10? I didn't think he was ranked right now. All right. Well, nonetheless, I take my L. And Aiden, the first one to get an edge. We were every week. It was the same.
We started 0-2. No, 1-1, and then 1-2.
Yeah, and then it was 3 straight. But now I have some catching up to do. We'll call the winner. The winner will get 10. We'll call it 10, and then we'll have a new game and competition.
Fair.
So
I'm at 5-2. You're at 4-3, right?
And I'm at 4-3. Ooh, baby. It's getting interesting.
That wasn't. Was it like that? Was that like super hard?
No,
I thought
that
that
wasn't
was
bad. I should have probably should have asked if they were active or not. I mean, yeah, but it's all right.
Yeah, because I don't know if my knowledge is that extensive to go with unranked fighters at the division. I mean, maybe some weight classes.
Yeah, and Brunson didn't fight in the last 6 months either, man.
The last fight he had
was over. It was a year ago.
Oh shit! It was actually just over 6 months, I think. It was against DDP in March, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yo, so I might have fucked you on that question.
Right,
I'm not gonna lie, I feel bad.
Let's see if you're wrong. Then the controversy here is this. We're looking now. Well, survey says March 4th.
And we're September 26th. Yeah. So technically a little over 6.
Wow. It's just like that.
Dude, oh my God.
The case.
I don't know why. For a second, I thought that DDP fight was at the end of last year. And then I was like, oh, shit. Now that you mentioned that.
No, that was because I was like, man, I feel like Derek Brunson fought rather recently, but yeah, just over 6 months ago. Did that cucks my question pretty much. But I like the pick. I like the pick.
Oh, thank you.
So let's move on to this week's fight night, which I think the best way to describe this week's fight night is a bunch of guys who are either low in the rankings, but are notable names, and we'll go through it. You got the headliner in Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green, an interesting headliner to say the least. This could have been the third fight on a fight night.
But this was literally announced like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
like it was. This fight has like such a short notice because they needed somebody to fill in that October 7th headliner. Now I was looking at it, I'm like, there's still no main event. So good on Grant, because Grant was kind of inactive up until this. I think last year he fought once. The year before that he fought once. So he wants to get active. And he's such a slept on name. Like I don't think people understand. Like he is like, I think in my opinion, one of the dark horses in that division.
Absolutely.
I think he's undefeated in the UFC.
21-1 in their career, and he just fought beat a guy in Damir Ismagomedov, who coming in, I'm pretty sure was the favorite and had never been finished before. There was all this talk about this guy, and he came in and put in the work against him. So I think Dawson And we're talking about this main event here quickly. I mean, I think he's able to really handle Bobby Green. I think, I think maybe the short notice of it gives Bobby Green an edge, because I think Bobby Green's game is very one dimensional. I think you're gonna get the same Bobby Green regardless, I think, of a fight camp. Because he's somebody that doesn't really struggle in terms of cardio and stuff like that
No.
either. But I think, in the later rounds, maybe Bobby Green may be able to take round 3, but I think fresh Grant Dawson should be able to really handle Bobby Green. And I could even see him finding a finish there, in that main event. But, keep going. You got a guy in Joe Pyfer making his return against Abul Razak Al Hassan. And then I don't even know who. I've never heard of my boy Abul. He is 38 years old. Golly, it seems like they're giving Joe Pyfer another, kind of another easy, win. Same that they did to Raul Rosas Jr., where that guy did not deserve to be in the octagon. Regardless if it was 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, it was, clear matchup difference there. I think it's gonna be the same with Joe Pyfer in that co-main. But Alex Moreno versus Joaquin Buckley is an exciting fight.
It is exciting because both of those guys, the guys they just both previously fought. I'm sorry, the guys they both just previously fought.
Yeah.
And Tim Means and what the fuck am I blanking on his name for? Andre Fialho or something like that. Andre Fialho, you know what I'm talking?
Yeah,
The guy
Filio?
Joaquin Filio.
Yeah.
The guy that Joaquin just fit, or Joaquin or Joaquin Buckley just finished. They
Yeah.
they both just fought, and Tim Means got the dub. And I'm happy for Tim Means because he lost like the last 2 or 3 of his fights. Joe and I were talking about this early on in the start of MMA on the island. I think this was probably podcast 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That we were like, yo, he might need to get on his retirement fight. But hey, after a performance like that, maybe let's pump the brakes on our jumping to conclusions. And maybe he still got it in him.
True.
But I like this matchup between Morano and Buckley because Morano, I think, Morano was on a 5-fight win streak at welterweight, 4 or 5. Let me see real quick. ESPN always blesses. Okay, I'm sorry. He won 4 out of his last 5. His last loss was to Santiago Ponzinibbio at the end of last year. But besides that, rather, he's actually won 5 out of his last 6. Before that Ponzinibbio fight, he was on a 4-fight win streak. Okay, and then he obviously submitted Tim Means. So this guy has been pretty successful. So as of recent, minus that 1 fight, and Buckley looks like an animal at 170. I mean, this guy's probably, I think he's more scary looking than, actually maybe not more scary because Yoel had he had such a scary face. Yoel was obviously probably the scariest person of all time, in my opinion.
I love Yoel.
Yoel was a tank, but Buckley is just so big at 170, and he did good against Fialho, obviously. But Fialho losing to Tim Means, it doesn't, I guess, negate Buckley's win, but maybe it's not as impressive as people made it out to be. But it was a head kick, and Buckley's always known for flashy finishes. He's actually going into this fight as his life favorite. I'm rooting for Buckley because I like Buckley as a fighter. He's an exciting fighter. He always puts on a show. He's never trying to fight to just barely win. And that's one thing you respect, because some of these fighters, at the end of the day, the objective is to win and do that by any means necessary. But I think, and I'm not saying fighters go into that fight looking for a decision, because that's just, that's just an ignorant statement. I don't think anybody, and maybe some of them do, I don't know. They're just like, I'm just here to
I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some fighters and that
based on their performance, they don't have to verbally say
it. There's just a real lack of urgency in trying to find a finish. Especially somebody who, either a point fighter or somebody who's really good kickboxer or Muay Thai guy who can just stay on the outside and just rip leg kicks. And
actually, I thought of one guy, but we don't have to say his name. We know we're gonna fight at 170 because we're gonna stop saying his name every podcast. But him, he doesn't look like he ever wants to finish the fight, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know, man. Buckley's not like that, thankfully. And if he gets this win over a guy like Morano, obviously, like I said, Morano just lost to Ponzinibbio. Oh, that fight with D-Rod just got canceled, actually. That was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago. I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Ponzinibbio, he's been in the game for a while. He was like a fringe top 15 contender because he was going to fight D-Rod, who D-Rod was previously ranked 15th up until that loss to Gary, obviously. So who knows? The winner of this fight might fight a ranked guy at the bottom of that division next. Or maybe we'll fight the winner of Renat, the guy who just beat Kevin Lee.
Moicano?
No. Renat Fakrinov. Not Renato.
Who just beat who?
Kevin Lee. Remember Kevin Lee just made the comeback? Renat Firak. I'll look.
Oh yeah, that guy
That's
looks scary.
he should be fighting in the rankings soon. Actually, who's he fighting?
He's probably
Oh, okay. Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. He was actually one of the guys who beat Sean Strickland that I mentioned. Only 5 people have beaten him. This guy's one of them. So, but Renat's a scary guy, like Joe just mentioned. He is looking to fight in the rankings soon. So this is all. Maybe the winner of this fight will fight him. I don't know, but I think the winner of Buckley and Buckley and Morano will fight in the. And I think Buckley was he wasn't previously ranked at 85, but he fought Chris Curtis. And then who did he fight before Curtis? Oh, fuck, I don't know.
I think Imavov, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Imavov, yes. Yeah. And Imavov was ranked 12th. And he actually fought Kevin. I think this was before Holland was ranked at middleweight. He fought Kevin Holland. So this guy's fought in some decent names. Yeah, with that being said, I think the winner of this fight will fight for contention. So this fight has bigger stakes than people might make it out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple fights here that do have some pretty big stakes. Drew Dober versus Rick Glenson, a good one.
It's good. I'm good to see Drew back. I like
Drew. Drew's excited. Drew's another guy who's always looking for the finish. He got heavy hands, and another guy's
heavy handed.
And Ian Kutulaba. I don't know his opponent in Felipe Lins, but that's the sneaks. I love Ian Kutulaba because he fights like a maniac.
Yeah, but he was a guy that kind of was like, who was that guy we met 85? A while back who started great. You know who I'm talking about. I just can't say his name right now. Not Armand Tasirikin. The guy at 185, red haired. That he started off so good and then he started to decline.
Stumped redhead?
He kind of has
185. I have no idea. I'm stumped. But also, you got to mention a guy.
Figure it out.
And then just guess who? Chris Curtis. Freaking you said Chris Curtis. Chris Gutierrez is fighting on the undercard again for these ranked bantamweights against Montel Jackson. So that should be a good one there. 2 guys right in the middle.
Edmund Shabazian. That's the fish.
Oh yes, that redhead. Because I was like, what in the UFC has red hair?
But he was a guy who started off great. You know, I think now he's like 12-4, but he was like 11-0 or something stupid, like a really good record. And then he started to fall off. Ian Kutalaba, whatever, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
he's lost a lot of fights recently. I know he just won his last fight, but this guy, I think prior to his losing kid, he was doing pretty. A lot of people thought he would be like, a possible contender in the future. He beat Khalil. I think he actually finished Khalil Roundtree. We're going back a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Maybe Ian Kutalaba is gonna, have a turn of events. We'll see. But it's like you said, it's always interesting to watch him fight. So I'm excited to see how he does.
Yeah, and for that final fight on the main card, Alexander Hernandez coming off that victory against Jim Miller, looking to fight Billy Algeo, who just came off a submission win as well. So these are 2 guys at featherweight who are also very interesting. So as we were saying, this is a fight card where it's not the most the most exciting in terms of maybe like rankings wise, but there's a lot of guys who have a lot of good name value and provide a lot of entertainment. So this is a fight card that you're not going to want to miss. Early start at 7 p.m. Quick PSA for you folks that are going to tune in at 10 and be like, wait a minute, why is everything over already? Which I've definitely happened once or twice in my life. But with that, as long as Aiden has nothing else left, that is going to conclude it for MMA on the Island. Episode number 14 here, folks.
It's good to be back.
We're chugging along, and as long as the future holds as it's looking like the plan will be, we will be back every single week with the podcast coming out each and every Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that, and then be on the lookout on your timelines for our little snippets and the best parts of each podcast. But with that, thank you for joining us. Gonna have some more content coming soon, some more fresh, interesting segments, and maybe some new voices coming to the podcast in the very, very near future. So be on the lookout, folks. This has been MMA on the Island. I'm Joe Fresca. That's Aodhan Williams. Take care, folks. Enjoy the fights at 7 p.m. And we'll be back next week to break down the fights and more. Peace out, guys.